chapters 19, 20, and 21. This is our lecture on presentation aids. So I wanted to do this one this week because for your persuasive speech, I will expect you to use some sort of presentation aid. So hopefully this will help you all learn what's expected of you, what presentation aids are available, and how to use them. Oops. Alright, so as a overview, so this is part 6 of the textbook, which is chapters 19, 20, and 21. We will be learning about speaking with presentation aids, designing presentation aids, and using presentation software. So, speaking with presentation aids. Why would we use a presentation aid when giving a speech? Well, there's 3 main reasons why you would use it. 1, it improves audience understanding. So having these objects, pictures, whatever, these aids will help the audience further understand what you are discussing. 2, it keeps the audience engaged. It helps entertain the audience, gives them something to look at, something to think about, better than just lecturing at them. And 3, it increases your credibility as a speaker. If you have something that backs up your points, like a picture, a chart, any of these presentation aids, it will increase your credibility. So, selecting an appropriate aid. A presentation aid can be an object, model, picture, graph, chart, table, audio, video, or multimedia. So, that would be multiple of these things. You would want to, when using one of these aids, you want to make sure you use the correct one for the message you want to get across. So if you are doing a presentation on something like a mathematical concept, you wouldn't want to really do a picture because it's a concept. There won't really be, a picture won't really help. Instead, you maybe want to do a model or a chart, something like that. If you're doing something on a hobby of yours, then you probably wouldn't want to do a graph or a chart, a model, or anything like that. You'd probably want to do a picture or a video or actually have an object. It is important to make sure that your aid is relevant to your speech. If you're giving a speech on bread is better than pasta, you don't want to have pictures of like books, something like completely irrelevant. Make sure you have pictures of like, different types of bread, different types of pasta, stuff like that. So you want to make sure that your aid is relevant to your speech and is relevant to the point that you're trying to make using that aid. So props and models. Props are an inanimate object, so like, I got a lot of things on my desk. Like glasses. These glasses are an inanimate object. They're tangible, you can touch them, you can see them. They would be a prop. A model is a 3-dimensional scale size representation of an object. I do not have a model here to show you. If you use one of these objects or any objects, make sure you practice your speech using them. Usually you will have them like off to the side or like hidden, and then you bring them out and hold it or show the audience when making your point. Another example of a prop would be a coffee mug that I have a picture here about, if you were doing something on different types of mugs. And then a model here on the right side. I don't really know what that's supposed to represent, but I know that it is a scientific model with, I think it's of some sort of atom. I'm not a science person, unfortunately. Then we are moving on to pictures. This includes photographs, drawings, diagrams, maps, and posters. These would be, any of those would be good. It's really good for any kind of speech, but especially persuasive speaking. It helps get across a point a lot easier when you can show it and have something to back up what you are trying to convince people of. If you are going to use pictures, please avoid using pictures that will be upsetting to viewers. So no violence, gore, death, anything, I don't even know, beyond that. Maybe nothing racist, nothing homophobic. We don't want to be upsetting our viewers with something that we show them. So, for example, on the left side, I have a picture of a map that is the path of destruction from the El Reno tornado back in 2013. I believe it was 2013. But yeah, that would show if I was doing a speech on that specific tornado, then that map would be a really good way to show the scale of destruction. On the right, that is a photograph. If you're doing something about, like, dangers of not using sunscreen, that would be a good one. That is a picture of me and one of my sisters. Just what I have. But yeah, so once again, make sure it is appropriate for what you're doing and it is not upsetting to viewers. Then we have graphs, charts, and tables. This is a little bit more mathematic. If you are wanting to use a graph, chart, table, etc., make sure there is a checklist in the textbook. Let me see what page it was. It would have been helpful if I found the page beforehand, but I did not think of that. It is on page 145. It's a checklist for creating an effective line, bar, and pie graph. So yeah, if you want to use any of those, make sure you use that checklist. Yeah, this would be good for anything statistical that you want to show. On the left side, I have a line graph on, well, part of it I think is a line graph. It is on the average low temperature over time between 1970 and 2023 in Greenville, North Carolina, showing that, the average low temperature during fall nights has risen quite significantly over time. It has gone up 4.9 degrees Fahrenheit. And then on the right side, on the left side, that would be a good one to show if you were doing something on, like, climate change, the leaves changing faster. That is also part of that. Do I know that process? No, I'm not a science person, once again. And then on the right side, I have a figure. It is a flow chart. It's actually a dual process model for supportive communication, something that I used in my master's thesis. But it is like a flow chart where you have, like, this, then this, if this, then this, and this, and it's a chart. It would be good if you were doing something on supportive communication, which is a really cool topic, and I'm definitely not biased. Then we have audio, video, and multimedia. If you are going to do audio, video, anything like that, make sure that your clip is cued appropriately so it comes on at the right time. It is, on the right slide. If you aren't doing a slide and you're just having the video in the background, make sure you're able to just click a button and it plays. Keep your clips under 60 seconds. 30 seconds is preferred, but make sure it's at least under a minute. When I do speeches, and I grade your speeches, not when I do speeches, when I grade your speeches, that's what I meant to say. If you have a video and it is a minute long, and our speech is between 5 to 6 or 5 to 7 minutes is the persuasive speaking one, it will count as a minute, so make sure that you factor that in and you practice using your video because you don't want it to eat up all your time. And then we use clips to support a key point, so make sure you just don't throw a video in there kind of like what I did with this, but that's okay. Make sure you use a clip to support a key point, so it's directly relevant to something that you were talking about. If you're using a presentation, embed your videos directly into the presentation so that it can just be right there and you don't have to fiddle with, exiting out of the presentation, going into YouTube, playing it, whatever. And then before you do the video or audio, make sure make sure you alert the audience of what you are about to be playing and its relevance. So my example right here is if I'm giving my, lecture, I would say, so before I play this video, I want to let you all know that it is a 12-hour video of copyright-free music because this will go on YouTube and I do not want my video taken down. It is relevant to this because it is an example showing you what you should do if you do this presentation aid. So I made this to start at 1 minute in the video and made it stop at 1 minute and 15 seconds. So it should stop here in 3, 2, 1. Amazing. If you use Google Slides, it has that feature. I'm not so sure about Microsoft. I have not tried that. I'm sure it does as well. But I would definitely, if you're going to do an audio video or any multimedia, I would suggest putting together a full presentation just because it's easy to do that. But yeah. So, designing presentation aids. I have said this acronym before. I will say it again. We are using the KISS method, which is keep it simple, stupid. Once again, I've said this in the past. I'm not calling you guys stupid. You guys are very smart. But that is the acronym. I use this a lot when I'm doing my presentation aids because we want to keep it simple. We don't want it all cluttered and crowded and hard to read because the audience will just not be interested. So keeping the design simple. 1, follow the 6x6 rule. Roughly use 6 words per line. It's not perfect, but I would not go more than 8, maybe 10, but really 8, 6 words per line, and then 6 lines per slide. So that is, if you see on here, follow the 6x6 rule. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. The next line is 8. The next is 4, then 2, then 3, but we only have 5 lines going down. So we want to make sure that it's 6 words over, 6 lines down, no more than that. If you have to go to 8 words per line, that's fine. Just don't do 6 lines of 8 words per line, because that is a lot. We want it to be easy for the audience to follow. We want it to be easy so that you aren't reading off of your slide. Some people might think it's easier to read off of their slide. It's actually much more difficult because you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to say the exact right things, and you won't be looking at the audience, which is very obvious to someone like me who grades them. So also, you're going to want to use the active voice, so that is putting the object before the verb. So we're not saying, I don't even know an example of passive voice. It's fine. Just put the noun before the verb, the subject of the sentence before the verb, using active voice. Avoid clutter, so we don't want a bunch of words, a bunch of lines, a bunch of pictures, nothing like that. Because people will just look at that and go, oh, not want to look. And then 4, create concise titles, so it is easy for the audience to follow along. Like this, keep the design simple. That shows you guys, my audience, that we are about to talk about the design of presentation aids being simple, how we can do that, why we should do that, things like that. So create concise titles. And then moving on to, we're still doing keep the design simple. More points though. be consistent. So we want the same colors, the same fonts, the same formatting. You can use like 2, maybe 3 colors. So like if you see on this slide, I have the background is like a pretty much a white, kind of off-white. And then I have a red arrow. The actual lettering is like I think it's a black. I might have done a dark blue. I'm not really too sure. And then for fonts, you're going to want to use 2 at most fonts. At most. No more than 2 fonts. If you have a bunch of different kind of fonts, font styles, it's going to look really weird and be confusing. And then you're going to want to use the same formatting. So if you see on this page, I have the title at the top. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the subpoints are A. If I had more subpoints, it'd be B, C, D, on and on and on. Make sure you use, if you want to do bullet points, if you want to do arrows, if you want to do none of that, make sure it is consistent throughout the entire presentation. And then to make it professional, so you want to use appropriate fonts, colors, and images. So we don't want to use like, I know for some of my lectures I do pink and light blue and light purple, but that's because I can, and this is not for a grade. This is for my job. So if you want to do it for a grade, or if your job is much more professional, make sure you stick with like neutral colors, maybe blue. Yeah, don't do like a red or a yellow, orange, nothing intense. As for appropriate fonts, that would be using like Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri, I think it's called. Anything like that. We're not using Comic Sans. We're not using a like a cursive one. And then make sure you do professional images. So we're not using GIFs. We're not using memes, unfortunately. But we're keeping it professional. And then 3, make sure there are no spelling errors. The best way to do that is to have your spell check on and to go back through your speech when you are finished with it. One of my biggest pet peeves is someone that I went to grad school with would always have spelling errors all throughout her presentations. Love her to death, but it irked me every single time. I am really good at catching spelling errors, so if you have them, I will see them. So make sure it's really easy to just go right back through and make sure you don't have any. And then make sure your font size is big enough so we're not having a little tiny font. My personal rule of thumb is try to be around 23 point font and above, 20 sometimes. It's just easy for people to see across the room if you have bigger font. So here's an example of a really bad slide. It has the exact same content as the last slide, but we see that it is pink. It has many different font colors. It has many different font styles. It has many different distracting things like spelling errors, the moving sticker, the GIF that is, or the meme that is kind of funny. But you can probably think to yourself, does this look professional? No, it does not look professional. Does this even look good? Not at all. So make sure that it looks more like this. If it goes back, more like this than this. The exact same words, exact same message, but it's obvious to see that one is better than the other. And lastly, using presentation software. If you are having a like a presentation, a slideshow, make sure that you are putting your speech first. You are giving a speech, not a slideshow. So we aren't flipping through the pictures really fast. We aren't looking at our screen and reading off of it the whole time. You are giving your speech. The presentation is just there to aid you. You are not aiding the presentation. And then 2, practice using your presentation aid, whether that is an object, a slideshow, pictures, audio, video, whatever. Practice. You know, I said last time, practice 6 times before you do your speech. This time, practice 6 times using your presentation aid as well. Make sure you have it with you so that you know when to bring it out at the right time, when to flip the slide at the right time, when to play a video at the right time. And then 3, if you are using technology, if we were in an in-person class, this would be more relevant, but this will be helpful for your other classes. But if you're using technology in the classroom, go in early and make sure that it works ahead of time. Especially if you are like the only person giving a speech or the first person giving a speech, you're going to want to go in and open up, your slides, any video, whatever you want to do as well. Make sure that it all works. Make sure the audio with the actual computer stuff works. What else? There would be like the projection thing. Make sure that works. Because it would be really horrible to start your speech and none of it works. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it ever again. So that is chapters 19, 20, 21. If you have any questions, let me know.